There I was, just a guy in a diving suit, exploring the deep ocean like it was a walk in the park. You know, doing my thing. I'd heard rumors about an abandoned research facility somewhere in the Pacific, and being the adventurous type, I decided to check it out. What could go wrong, right? The descent was eerie. The water got darker and colder, and I could feel the pressure building. It's like the ocean was swallowing me whole. Then, out of the abyss, I see the outline of a structure. The abandoned facility. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie, all rusty and forgotten. I get closer, and the entrance is wide open, like an invitation. I figured, why not see what secrets this underwater tomb holds? So, I swim in, and it's all shadows and silence. The only sound is my own breathing through the regulator. Flashlight in hand, I start exploring. The place is a mess, equipment scattered, papers floating around. It's like everyone just up and left in a hurry. Then, I find these rooms. Rooms with glass walls. Each one holds a different underwater scene, like a twisted aquarium. And there, in the middle, are these tanks. Big, ominous tanks with something inside. I get closer, and that's when I see them, people, or what's left of them. Faces contorted in pain, bodies suspended in a liquid that's not quite water. My heart starts racing. Who the hell were these poor souls? As I move through the facility, it becomes clear this wasn't some legit research. No, these scientists were playing God. Experimenting on humans in the deep sea. Unethical doesn't even cover it. I start feeling this weight on my chest, not just from the water pressure, but from the horror of what I'm witnessing. Then, I stumble upon this control room, and the screens flicker to life. Surveillance footage shows the experiments, the agony of those people in the tanks. The scientists had a god complex, thinking they could manipulate life itself. My mind's racing, and I realize that if I stay here too long, I might end up as one of those poor souls in the tanks. That's when I hear it, distant footsteps echoing through the facility. Panic sets in. I'm not alone. Someone else is here. I hide in the shadows, praying they don't see me. But they're getting closer, their voices carrying through the water. They're talking about continuing the experiments, not realizing the facility was about to implode on itself. I realize I need to get out, and fast. As I make my way to the exit, I can hear alarms blaring. The pressure's building, and the facility's structural integrity is shot. Every step feels like a race against time. I can't shake the feeling that if I'm not quick enough, I'll be trapped in this underwater nightmare forever. Finally, I burst out into the open ocean. The pressure eases, and I swim like my life depends on it, because it does. Behind me, the abandoned facility collapses in on itself, a dark secret lost to the depths. I surface, gasping for air, the taste of salt on my lips. I look back at the ocean, and it's calm, like nothing happened. But in my mind, I can still hear the distant echoes of those tortured souls and the cold calculations of those mad scientists. I swim back up, away from the abyss, wondering how the hell I'm going to explain this to anyone. Who would believe a guy who just wanted to explore the deep sea, stumbled upon an underwater horror show, and narrowly escaped becoming part of the nightmare? So, we're out in the icy waters off Greenland, just a bunch of guys trying to make a living by reeling in whatever the sea decides to throw at us. The weather's unforgiving, but it's just another day on the boat, you know? Little did we know, this would be more than just a routine fishing trip. We've been at it for hours, hauling in our catch, hands numb from the cold. That's when we start hearing these weird noises, like creaking and shuffling. I figure it's just the boat settling into the waves, but it doesn't take long for me to realize something's off. Reel off. We search the boat, checking every nook and cranny, and that's when we find him, a guy huddled in a corner, looking like he just escaped the jaws of death. He's all wild-eyed, shivering like a leaf, muttering stuff we can't make sense of. Turns out, he's a stowaway, and he's brought a whole lot of crazy with him. The guy's a complete mess, babbling about some sinister plot or another. He's paranoid, like the walls are closing in on him. We try to calm him down, but it's like talking to a brick wall. He's convinced we're all part of some grand conspiracy against him. Night falls, and that's when things take a turn for the worse. We're out in the freezing darkness, surrounded by nothing but the howling wind and the unforgiving sea. The stowaway starts acting even more erratic, and I can feel the tension on the boat thickening. It's like we're caught in a storm, but the storm is within our own walls. Suddenly, the guy snaps. He's got this crazed look in his eyes, and before we can react, he pulls out a knife. The glint of the blade in the pale moonlight sends a chill down my spine. Panic sets in. We're trapped in the middle of the freezing ocean with a lunatic wielding a weapon. The captain tries to reason with him, but reason left the building ages ago. The stowaway lunges at the captain, and there's a struggle. I can't make out the details in the dark, but I hear grunts and curses, the sound of a desperate fight for survival. Then, the sickening thud. The captain collapses, clutching his side. Blood stains the icy deck. It's chaos. We're all yelling, scrambling to contain the situation. The stowaway stands there, panting, his eyes fixed on the havoc he's just unleashed. With the captain injured, the responsibility falls on us. We manage to overpower the stowaway, subduing him just long enough to tie him up. But the damage is done. Our captain is bleeding out, and the bitter cold is making everything worse. We radio for help, but the nearest vessel is hours away. The captain's groaning in pain, fading in and out of consciousness. We do what we can, applying makeshift bandages and trying to keep him warm. The stowaway, now bound and subdued, watches with a twisted satisfaction in his eyes. The hours crawl by, each minute feeling like an eternity. We're stuck in a nightmare, a freezing sea, a wounded captain, and a lunatic among us. The stowaway, now eerily calm, starts whispering cryptic nonsense, like he's possessed by some malevolent force. Just when we think we can't take it any longer, the distant hum of an approaching vessel breaks through the desolation. Relief washes over us, but it's tainted by the realization that this night will stay with us, like a shadow in the deep. As the rescue team takes over, we're left to process the madness that unfolded on the icy expanse. The stowaway is taken away, and we're left with questions that will haunt us. Why did this man snap? What demons were chasing him across the cold, unforgiving sea? We return to port, battered and scarred, forever changed by the horror that visited us in the Arctic darkness. We were living the high life on the French Riviera. A yacht, champagne flowing, and guests dressed to the nines. It was supposed to be a night of opulence and indulgence, a celebration of our wealth and success. Little did we know, the glittering surface hid a darkness that would shatter the illusion of our perfect world. Our guest list was a who's who of the elite. CEOs, celebrities, and influencers mingling on the deck. The Mediterranean stretched out around us, calm and inviting. The night began with laughter, clinking glasses, and the gentle hum of the engines. It was the epitome of extravagance. Amid the glitz, I noticed a guest, a man I didn't recognize. He seemed out of place, not part of our elite circle. I assumed he was an acquaintance of someone, a plus one who slipped through the cracks. Little did I know, he wasn't there for the festivities, he was there for something far more sinister. As the night wore on, I noticed the stranger observing us from the shadows. He didn't participate in the festivities. Instead, he lingered in the background, a silent spectator. Unease crept in, like a subtle chill on a warm night. I dismissed it, attributing it to the excess of champagne. As the moon hung high in the sky, the atmosphere changed. Laughter became strained, smiles forced. The stranger had disappeared, and a sense of foreboding settled over the yacht. That's when the lights flickered, plunging us into momentary darkness. Panic gripped the partygoers. A technical glitch, they said, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more. In the dim emergency lighting, I spotted the stranger again, this time moving with purpose. I approached him, trying to mask my concern with a veneer of hospitality. His eyes, cold and calculating, met mine. He muttered something about a vendetta, revenge for perceived wrongs. My mind raced to make sense of his cryptic words, but before I could comprehend, chaos erupted. He unleashed a meticulously planned series of events that would turn our paradise into a nightmare. The yacht, once a haven of luxury, became a claustrophobic maze. Guests were herded into confined spaces, their laughter replaced by panic whispers. Security personnel scrambled to contain the situation, but it was clear they were dealing with a threat they hadn't anticipated. Locked in a room with other hostages, I tried to make sense of the situation. The stranger, it seemed, had a score to settle with someone among us. He spoke of betrayal, of a life ruined by the machinations of the wealthy. I realized he wasn't just a random intruder. He was a man with a vendetta against the privileged. Tensions escalated. The stranger demanded justice, or what he perceived as justice, for the sins of the elite. The yacht, once a symbol of excess, became a prison. Panic reverberated through the confined space as the stranger played his twisted game, orchestrating a chilling drama of revenge. One by one, he singled out individuals, accusing them of crimes against humanity, as if our wealth and status made us all complicit. Fear and paranoia spread like wildfire among the hostages. We were trapped with a man hell-bent on retribution, and there was no negotiating with the abyss of his anger. Hours crawled by like a nightmare, refusing to end. The stranger's demands grew more erratic, and his threats more explicit. It became clear that this wasn't just about settling a personal score. It was a commentary on societal injustices, a manifestation of the rage simmering beneath the surface of the privileged world. In the early hours of the morning, a sense of hopelessness settled over the hostages. The yacht, once a vessel of dreams, now felt like a sinking ship of despair. The stranger, fueled by his twisted sense of justice, seemed unstoppable. We were at the mercy of a man driven to the brink, a man determined to make us pay for sins real or imagined. Suddenly, the distant hum of approaching sirens broke through the despair. The French authorities had caught wind of our ordeal. Flashlights pierced the darkness as they stormed the yacht. The stranger, realizing his time was up, attempted a final stand, but the authorities were prepared. The yacht, once a symbol of wealth and indulgence, became a crime scene. The guests, now survivors, stumbled onto the docks, disheveled and traumatized. The stranger, apprehended, was led away in handcuffs. It was a routine day on the North Sea, the waves crashing against the hull of our rescue boat. The radio buzzed with a distress call, a desperate plea for help from a ship lost amid the tempest. My fellow crew members and I sprung into action, navigating through the choppy waters towards the coordinates. As we approached the distressed vessel, a shiver ran down my spine. The ship, battered by the unforgiving sea, looked like a ghost ship, abandoned to the mercy of the waves. The air was thick with tension as we boarded the vessel, greeted by an eerie silence broken only by the creaking of the ship. The ship's interiors were a chaotic mess, evidence of a struggle against the storm. Abandoned equipment, overturned chairs, and scattered belongings painted a picture of chaos. The ominous feeling intensified as we explored further, finding no signs of the crew except for one survivor. Huddled in a corner, a lone man, drenched and disoriented, mumbled about something unimaginable. His eyes held a haunted look, and his shaky voice struggled to convey the horrors he'd witnessed. He spoke of a conspiracy, of something sinister that led to the abandonment of the ship. I tried to make sense of his fragmented tale, a story of corruption, smuggling, and a crew silence for knowing too much. It seemed absurd, like a plot from a B-grade thriller, but the man's distress was palpable. He spoke of shady dealings, powerful figures, and a cargo that wasn't what it appeared to be. My instincts told me there was more to this than met the eye, that I had stumbled upon a dangerous truth. The survivor begged for protection, claiming those responsible for the ship's fate would come after him. I radioed for backup, aware that our mission had transformed into something far more treacherous. As we waited for reinforcements, a sense of dread settled over the abandoned vessel. The man's paranoid glances made me uneasy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our presence had attracted unwanted attention. Shadows seemed to dance in the corners, and every creak of the ship echoed with menace. Suddenly, a distant hum cut through the ominous silence. The sound of approaching engines sent a chill down my spine. The survivor's eyes widened in terror as he muttered, "They found us." Panic set in, and the once deserted ship felt like a trap closing in on us. We prepared for the worst as an unmarked vessel emerged from the mist. Masked figures clad in black descended onto the abandoned ship. Armed and determined, they moved with the precision of a well-trained force. The survivors' fears had materialized. Those responsible for the ship's fate had arrived. A standoff ensued, a clash between the unknown assailants and our rescue team. The once tranquil sea became a battleground, the waves witnessing a struggle for the truth. The survivor, caught in the crossfire, clung to the shadows, a pawn in a dangerous game. Amidst the chaos, I glimpsed the face of a man, a high-ranking official implicated in the survivor's tale. His cold eyes bore into mine, a silent warning not to delve deeper into the conspiracy. It was a battle not just against the sea, but against a powerful adversary determined to protect their secrets. The confrontation escalated, shots fired, shouts echoing across the desolate vessel. The survivor, driven by fear, slipped away, disappearing into the labyrinthine corridors. Our rescue boat rocked with the violent clash, the sea mirroring the turbulence within. As the masked assailants retreated, their dark secrets protected, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were just pawns in a larger game. The survivor, the lone witness to the conspiracy, was gone, leaving behind unanswered questions and an unsettling truth. The sea held secrets darker than its depths, and our mission had plunged us into a perilous game of maritime intrigue. The Indian Ocean was my second home, a vast expanse that held secrets beneath its surface. As a marine biologist, my days were spent studying the vibrant ecosystems of coral reefs. Little did I know, a routine dive would thrust me into the heart of a chilling mystery. The waters were crystal clear that day, sunlight filtering through the surface, creating a mesmerizing dance of colors. I descended into the depths, the silent world of the ocean enveloping me. Schools of fish darted around, and vibrant coral formations stretched as far as the eye could see. It was a serene scene, a tranquil ballet of life. As I explored, I noticed a peculiar anomaly on my sonar. A cluster of readings that hinted at something other than the usual marine life. Intrigued, I followed the signals, my curiosity overpowering any sense of caution. The underwater landscape gradually shifted, and the vibrant hues of the coral gave way to an eerie darkness. Descending further, I stumbled upon a sight that sent shivers down my spine, an underwater graveyard. The remnants of a sunken ship lay scattered across the ocean floor, a silent testament to a tragedy beneath the waves. The skeletal remains of the vessel were frozen in time, a haunting snapshot of a maritime disaster. My pulse quickened as I swam through the ghostly remnants, my senses heightened by the gravity of the scene. The ship's skeletal structure held an air of desolation, as if the ocean itself mourned the lives lost in its depths. It was a chilling reminder of the ocean's ability to both give and take away. My mind raced with questions. What had caused the ship to meet such a tragic end? Why was it hidden in the depths, concealed from the surface world? As a scientist, my instinct was to unravel the mysteries of the natural world, but this discovery felt like peering into a realm where answers only led to darker questions. I approached the ship's debris, the once mighty vessel reduced to a haunting echo of its former self. Broken portholes stared back at me like empty eyes, and tangled seaweed clung to rusted remnants. Every sway of the seaweed felt like a whisper, as if the ocean itself sought to reveal its secrets. Among the wreckage, I discovered a corroded door hanging ajar. It beckoned me like a portal to the unknown. With trepidation, I pushed it open, the creaking of metal amplified in the silent underwater expanse. The ship's interior, now a sanctuary for marine life, bore witness to the passage of time. As I navigated the submerged corridors, I stumbled upon a series of sealed compartments. The air within them felt oppressive, a hint of tragedy locked away. It was then that I uncovered the ship's terrifying secret, remnants of human habitation. Personal belongings suspended in a watery abyss, frozen in a perpetual limbo. The ship's log, waterlogged and disintegrating, revealed a harrowing tale of desperation and despair. A voyage gone awry, crew members trapped in the watery depths, and a futile struggle for survival. The words on the decaying pages echoed the silent screams of those who had met their end in the unforgiving ocean. Dread settled over me as I pieced together the tragic narrative. The ship, once filled with life and purpose, now lay as a testament to the cruel unpredictability of the sea. Every artifact, every rusted surface, told a story of lives extinguished beneath the waves. As I ascended from the underwater graveyard, the sunlit waters above felt like a distant memory. The ocean, with its beauty and brutality, had revealed a side that transcended the boundaries of the living. My life as a journalist had led me to some dark corners of the world, but nothing prepared me for the South China Sea. There were whispers of disappearances, crews vanishing without a trace on cargo ships that sailed through those murky waters. Determined to uncover the truth, I boarded a vessel, a decision that would thrust me into the heart of a horror I couldn't have fathomed. The cargo ship, a rusty behemoth, creaked and groaned with every roll of the waves. My investigation began innocuously, chatting with crew members about the missing personnel. They spoke in hushed tones, eyes darting nervously around as if the sea itself bore witness to their secrets. Late one night, driven by a gut feeling, I explored the dimly lit corridors below deck. The air hung heavy with a metallic tang, and the flickering fluorescent lights cast ominous shadows on the worn-out walls. My instinct screamed that there was more to this ship than met the eye. In a secluded corner, I stumbled upon a makeshift holding area. The stench of desperation hit me like a wave. The faces of those imprisoned there, haunted by fear, told a story more chilling than I could have imagined. They were victims of a human trafficking operation, ensnared in the underbelly of this seemingly ordinary cargo ship. As I delved deeper, I discovered a network of illicit dealings. The ship had become a floating prison, transporting human cargo under the guise of legitimate trade. The traffickers, masked in shadows, operated with a ruthless efficiency that sent shivers down my spine. This was a nightmare, one that surpassed the tales of disappearances I had initially set out to uncover. Caught in the throes of this revelation, my journalistic instinct kicked in. I needed evidence, a damning expose that would expose the traffickers and bring justice to the victims. Every creak of the ship, every stifled sob from the captives, fueled my determination to unearth the truth. I documented the conditions, the cramped spaces, the desperation etched on faces, and the dehumanizing reality of human trafficking. The ship, a vessel of nightmares, became my haunting backdrop as I gathered the evidence that would expose the darkness lurking beneath the surface. But the traffickers weren't oblivious to my presence. Paranoia spread among them, manifesting in glares and whispered threats. The ship, once a labyrinth of hidden horrors, now felt like a trap closing in on me. My every move was scrutinized, and the tension hung thick in the air. As I raced against time to complete my investigation, a plan formed in my mind, an escape for those whose lives had become pawns in this macabre game. The victims, stripped of their dignity, clung to the hope that someone could break their chains. The night was my ally as I orchestrated a daring rescue. Guided by the flickering emergency lights, we moved stealthily through the ship's labyrinthine corridors. Every footstep echoed the weight of our collective fear, and the pulse of adrenaline drowned out the creaks of the ship. The traffickers, oblivious to our movements, were caught off guard. In the dead of night, we emerged from the shadows, the captives transformed into a determined force seeking freedom. Chaos erupted as the traffickers, outnumbered and unprepared, faced a rebellion from the depths of their floating prison. As we neared the ship's deck, a newfound resilience gripped the liberated captives. The South China Sea, once a desolate expanse, became a symbol of both our escape and the fight against the horrors we left behind. With a makeshift raft, we navigated the unforgiving waves, leaving the cargo ship and its dark secrets in our wake. Life had taken a turn for the adventurous when my buddies and I decided to embark on a sailing expedition. The allure of the open sea beckoned, promising us uncharted territories and hidden paradises. Little did we know that our thirst for adventure would lead us to a nightmare beyond our wildest imagination. The day we stumbled upon that isolated island remains etched in my memory like a recurring nightmare. The azure waters teased us, luring us toward an untouched tropical paradise. The island emerged on the horizon, draped in lush greenery and framed by pristine beaches. Excitement pulsed through our veins, fueling the adrenaline of discovery. Our first encounter with the islanders was idyllic. A charismatic leader welcomed us with open arms, a smile that hid secrets, and a charm that masked a darker truth. Their community seemed utopian, a tight-knit group living in harmony with nature. We were invited to share in their bounty, and for a moment, the island felt like a haven untouched by the complexities of the outside world. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the islanders gathered around a roaring bonfire, their rhythmic chants echoing through the night. The leader, a magnetic figure with piercing eyes, spoke of unity, enlightenment, and a life untainted by the chaos of civilization. It was a seductive narrative, drawing us into a web of illusions that concealed the peril lurking beneath the surface. The following day, our yacht anchored in the bay, we explored the island's interior. Its beauty was beguiling, but subtle signs of an unsettling reality began to manifest. Whispers among the islanders hinted at a darker purpose. Unanswered questions dangled in the humid air as we uncovered remnants of ships scattered like forgotten dreams in the dense foliage. It was during an innocent conversation with a local that the first shiver of unease gripped my spine. A fleeting remark about the island's past, a history woven with the wreckage of ships that had ventured too close. I dismissed it as folklore, an attempt to mystify their island paradise. As night fell, a subtle shift in the atmosphere hinted at the impending nightmare. The charismatic leader's rhetoric took a sinister turn, his words dripping with fanaticism. The bonfire that once symbolized unity transformed into a flickering portal to a descent into madness. In the darkness, we glimpsed hooded figures emerging from the shadows, their faces masked by an unsettling devotion. Fear gnawed at our guts as we realized the islanders weren't the idyllic community they pretended to be. Their charismatic leader was orchestrating a ritual, a deadly dance fueled by a fanaticism that eclipsed reason. Chaos erupted as we attempted a desperate escape, The island, once a tropical haven, transformed into a labyrinth of terror. Hooded figures pursued us through the dense jungle, their chants now echoing with menace. We stumbled upon a hidden cave, a refuge that became our last stand against the encroaching darkness. As we huddled in the cave's shadows, the islanders' fanaticism reached its peak. A grotesque culmination of their ritual unfolded, merging horror and devotion. The bonfire blazed brighter, casting flickering shadows on the cave walls, each dance of flame a harbinger of our impending doom. The leader's voice rose to a crescendo, his words an unholy incantation that echoed through the cave. It was then that we understood the island's secret, a cult that preyed on passing ships, a deadly trap ensnaring unwitting adventurers in a web of fanaticism and ritualistic horror. In the claustrophobic darkness of the cave, we clung to the hope of survival. The hooded figures, driven by an unholy fervor, closed in on us. The air thickened with terror as the bonfire's glow seeped into our refuge, exposing the shadows that danced like malevolent spirits. The cave became a battleground, our screams blending with the islanders' chants. We fought against the nightmarish tide, every futile struggle an act of defiance against a cult determined to consume us. In the chaos, the line between survival and surrender blurred, our fate hanging in the balance. As the first rays of dawn painted the horizon, we emerged from the cave, survivors of a nightmarish encounter that would forever haunt our dreams. Life on a luxury cruise seems like a dream job for a chef, right? The vast expanse of the ocean, the opulent dining halls, and the promise of culinary excellence. Little did I know, this culinary journey would take an unexpected turn into the depths of a gastronomic nightmare. Everything started off just as expected, the gleaming kitchen, the rhythmic clatter of pots and pans, and the aroma of exquisite dishes wafting through the air. As the ship set sail, I felt like the maestro orchestrating a symphony of flavors that would define this extravagant voyage. Little did I know that my culinary skills would soon be put to the test in the most horrifying way. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly. A few passengers complained of upset stomachs, attributing it to the rocking of the ship or the unfamiliarity of gourmet cuisine. At first, I dismissed it as a routine occurrence, the kind every cruise ship encounters. But the complaints multiplied like an insidious infection, spreading through the ship like a silent plague. The ship's infirmary became a revolving door of pale-faced passengers, each one succumbing to a mysterious ailment that defied diagnosis. My kitchen, once a haven of culinary delights, transformed into a breeding ground for suspicion and fear. The taste of success turned bitter as I grappled with the reality that my creations were causing harm rather than delight. As the ship's chef, I couldn't escape the escalating panic. Whispers of foul play echoed through the galley, and accusatory glances followed my every move. The passengers, once gourmands reveling in a culinary journey, now eyed each meal with trepidation. The allure of the dining hall waned, replaced by the haunting specter of an unseen adversary. Behind the scenes, I worked tirelessly to scrutinize every ingredient, every process, searching for the elusive source of the culinary malady. The ship's staff, my culinary accomplices, became accomplices in this macabre investigation, unraveling a web of potential suspects. Was it a disgruntled crew member seeking revenge? A passenger with a sinister motive? The answers remained elusive, hidden within the labyrinth of the ship's luxurious corridors. As the poisonings escalated, the once jovial atmosphere on the cruise ship metamorphosed into a tense and paranoid environment. The laughter that once echoed through the dining halls was replaced by hushed conversations and furtive glances. I found myself at the center of this culinary storm, burdened with the responsibility of unmasking the saboteur within our midst. Sleepless nights blurred into endless days as I meticulously reviewed security footage, cross-referenced passenger lists, and analyzed the ship's supply chain. The answer lay somewhere within the labyrinth of the ship, a clandestine threat masked by the veneer of sophistication. It became a race against time as the poisonings continued, each meal a potential weapon wielded by an invisible adversary. The breaking point came when a passenger, overcome by the mysterious ailment, collapsed during a lavish dinner. The ship's medical team, overwhelmed by the sudden surge of patients, struggled to cope. The once majestic cruise ship resembled a floating hospital ship, its halls echoing with the moans of the afflicted. With the ship's reputation hanging by a thread, I intensified my efforts to unmask the saboteur. Suspicion cast its shadow on everyone, and the once cohesive crew fractured into a collective of wary individuals. The galley, once a realm of creativity, became a battleground where culinary expertise clashed with an unseen enemy. Finally, a breakthrough. A review of security footage revealed a shadowy figure lingering near the food supply storage. The pieces began to align as I recognized the crew member responsible for managing the provisions. A sense of betrayal cut through me as I confronted this perpetrator, a colleague I once trusted. The motive? It remained shrouded in personal vendettas and hidden resentments. The desire for revenge had manifested in a campaign of culinary terror, tarnishing the ship's reputation and endangering the lives of its passengers. The unmasking of the saboteur brought a temporary reprieve. The affected passengers received medical attention, and the ship resumed its course. However, the scars of this ordeal lingered. The once celebrated chef now bore the weight of a culinary catastrophe that had unfolded under their watch. Working on an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico sounds like a tough job, and let me tell you, it is. The days are long, the work is hard, but it pays the bills. You get used to the constant hum of machinery, the smell of oil, and the endless expanse of the ocean. But nothing could prepare me for what I stumbled upon one fateful day. It started innocently enough. Just another day of routine maintenance and checks. I was doing my rounds, inspecting the pipes and machinery for any signs of wear and tear. That's when I noticed something off, something I wasn't supposed to see. Barrels, big ones, being haphazardly tossed overboard. I couldn't believe my eyes at first, illegal dumping right here in the Gulf. Now, you might wonder why I didn't just look the other way. Well, it's not that simple when you've got a conscience, and you know that what you're witnessing is not just against the rules but downright criminal. These barrels, I suspected, contained hazardous waste, a blatant violation of environmental regulations. I had a choice to make, report it and risk becoming a target, or keep quiet and let the Gulf suffer. I'm no hero, just a regular guy trying to make a living, but the thought of the environmental damage being done right under our noses ate at me. So, I did what anyone with a shred of decency would do. I gathered evidence, photos, documents, anything that could prove what I'd seen. Then, I reported it to the higher-ups, thinking they'd handle it and justice would prevail. Little did I know, I had just crossed a line that powerful people would stop at nothing to protect. Things escalated quickly. Suddenly, I found myself in the crosshairs of a corporation more concerned with profit margins than environmental responsibility. I started receiving threats, anonymous messages warning me to keep my mouth shut. At first, I thought it was just some sick prank, but when my brakes failed one day on the way home, reality hit me like a freight train. I was being targeted, and they weren't playing around. Fear became a constant companion, lurking in the shadows of my every move. The corporation's reach was far-reaching, and it seemed like they had eyes everywhere. I couldn't trust my colleagues. Anyone could be in on it. Sleepless nights turned into paranoid days. I was on edge, looking over my shoulder at every turn. My life had become a suspenseful thriller, and I was the unwitting protagonist. I reached out to the authorities, hoping they'd provide protection, but bureaucratic wheels turn slow, especially when it's a battle against corporate giants. One evening, as I sat in a dimly lit bar nursing a drink, stranger approached. A slick suit, cold eyes, the classic corporate enforcer. He didn't beat around the bush. Drop the case, disappear, or face the consequences, he hissed, a thinly veiled threat that sent shivers down my spine. But I couldn't back down. I'd seen too much, and the guilt of staying silent outweighed the fear of retribution. I became a recluse, moving from one cheap motel to another, always looking over my shoulder, always ready for the next threat. One night, as I huddled in my motel room, the power went out. The sudden darkness was suffocating, and the silence that followed was deafening. I fumbled for my phone, and as the dim glow illuminated the room, I saw it, a shadowy figure in the corner. My heart raced, and before I could react, a sharp pain erupted in the back of my head. I woke up in a dimly lit room, disoriented and groggy. The slick-suited enforcer stood over me, a sinister smile playing on his lips. "You should have stayed quiet," he sneered. The room felt like a prison, and the realization hit me. I was at their mercy. Days blurred into nights as I languished in that dim room, the cold floor my bed, and the fear my constant companion. The corporation had me right where they wanted, helpless, broken, a cautionary tale for anyone who dared to challenge their authority. But even in the depths of despair, a spark of defiance remained. As they underestimated me, thinking they crushed my spirit, I plotted my escape. It took every ounce of resilience and cunning to outsmart my captors, but I managed to slip through their fingers like sand. I emerged from that ordeal battered and bruised, but with a fire burning within. The evidence I collected was my trump card, a weapon against the corporate monolith that had tried to silence me. With newfound determination, I reached out to investigative journalists, environmental agencies, anyone who could help expose the truth. The story hit the headlines: illegal dumping, corporate corruption, and the lone whistleblower who defied the odds. The corporation, once invincible, now faced public outrage and legal consequences. My ordeal had become a rallying cry for environmental justice, a testament to the power of one voice against the darkness of corporate greed. Working for the Coast Guard had its moments, but nothing prepared me for the night I got that distress call in the Bering Sea. The voice on the radio sounded frantic, something about a stranded ship and a traumatized crew. We kicked into high gear, battling the turbulent waters as we rushed to the coordinates they provided. As our vessel approached the stranded ship, it emerged from the mist like a ghostly apparition. The crew was huddled on the deck, shivering and terrified. We threw them lifelines and started the rescue operation. They were in bad shape, pale faces etched with fear. It was clear this was no ordinary distress call. Once safely aboard, we gathered the crew in our small cabin to get the story. The captain, a weathered man with haunted eyes, began recounting the events that led to their distress. They had been on a routine fishing expedition, nothing out of the ordinary, until they stumbled upon an abandoned vessel drifting in the icy waters. Curiosity got the better of them, and they decided to board the derelict ship, thinking they might find salvageable goods. What they found, however, was a nightmare. Empty corridors echoed with distant, muffled sounds. Signs of struggle were everywhere: overturned furniture, blood stains, and a sense of malevolence that hung in the stale air. As they delved deeper into the ship's belly, they discovered a makeshift brig. Caged inside were emaciated figures, wild-eyed and desperate. These were the crew members of the abandoned vessel, reduced to near madness by weeks of isolation and fear. The captain shuddered as he described the horrors those poor souls had endured. Tales of a phantom crew haunting the ship, whispers in the dark, and shadows that seemed to move on their own. They were convinced the ship was cursed, that malevolent forces lingered in the frozen corridors. We exchanged uneasy glances, skepticism warring with the desperation in the crew's eyes. Still, we had a job to do, and that was to bring them back to safety. As we navigated the icy expanse, a creeping unease settled over our vessel. The wind howled like a chorus of tormented souls, and the creaking of our hull seemed to echo the haunted tales we'd just heard. Then it happened. A distant shape emerged from the mist, a vessel eerily similar to the one the stranded crew had described. Panic gripped us as the ghost ship approached, silent and foreboding. It was as if the Bering Sea itself held its breath, anticipating the horror about to unfold. As the ghost ship drew nearer, we saw figures on its deck, shadows of the past, spectral remnants of a crew long lost to the unforgiving sea. Fear clenched our hearts as we realized that the horrors were not confined to the abandoned ship. They had followed us, a maritime madness infecting the very waters we sailed. We radioed for assistance, desperate for backup in the face of this supernatural onslaught. The ghost ship circled us, its phantom crew staring with hollow eyes. Whispers of forgotten tales echoed in the wind, tales of maritime madness that transcended the boundaries of the physical and the ethereal. As the Coast Guard cutter neared, the ghost ship melted back into the mist, leaving us with an indelible sense of dread. The stranded crew, now safe aboard our vessel, huddled together, haunted by the maritime madness that had clung to them like the chill of the Bering Sea. In the aftermath, the official report spoke of a derelict vessel adrift in the icy waters, its crew lost to the harsh elements. The supernatural aspects were conveniently omitted, buried in the depths of classified records, the maritime madness consigned to the shadows of nautical lore. But those of us who were there that night, who felt the cold breath of the sea whispering tales of maritime madness, carry the weight of that horror. Our honeymoon started as a dream, a private yacht sailing the azure waters of the Bahamas. Sunsets painted the sky in hues of pink and orange, and the gentle lull of the waves serenaded us into blissful evenings. But paradise has its secrets, and ours was about to unravel. The crew, a seemingly friendly bunch, guided us through the pristine waters, sharing tales of the sea and pointing out hidden gems in the archipelago. Yet, as the days passed, a subtle unease crept into the edges of our paradise. Late one night, I overheard hushed voices on the deck. Curiosity got the better of me, and I ventured out to find the crew gathered in an intense discussion. Their eyes flicked to me briefly, and an awkward silence settled over the yacht. Something was amiss, but my inquiries were met with dismissive smiles and vague explanations. As the days went by, the crew's demeanor shifted. The friendly banter turned into wary glances, and their smiles now seemed forced. I chalked it up to my imagination, the paranoia of being in an unfamiliar place with unfamiliar faces. But a gnawing feeling lingered in my gut. One evening, I stumbled upon a locked room in the lower deck. The crew seemed visibly disturbed when I inquired about it, brushing it off as a storage space. The key, however, eluded me, and my attempts to pry into its secrets were met with stern warnings. The air grew heavy with tension, and my wife shared my growing unease. Whispers of conspiracies danced in our minds, fueled by the crew's furtive glances and cryptic conversations. Our romantic haven was transforming into a claustrophobic trap. One night, as the moon cast a silver sheen over the ocean, I woke to a muffled conversation outside our cabin. Cautiously, I slipped out, careful not to alert the crew. They huddled near the stern, their voices hushed but urgent. My heart raced as I strained to catch fragments of their ominous dialogue. "Stick to the plan," one muttered, casting furtive glances around. "No loose ends." Dread pulled in my stomach as I stumbled back to our cabin, waking my wife with urgency in my eyes. We had to escape, but the vastness of the ocean offered no refuge. Confronting the crew seemed perilous, our survival depended on stealth. We devised a plan to slip away in the dead of night, using a lifeboat to distance ourselves from the yacht. Our hearts pounded as we executed our escape, the creaking of the lifeboat's hull a cacophony against the backdrop of the silent sea. Adrift in the darkness, we watched the yacht shrink on the horizon, a shadowy vessel with secrets we were never meant to uncover. Fear clung to us like the salt in the air. What were they planning? Were we just witnesses to something sinister, or were we the intended victims? Hours passed, the moon guiding our tiny vessel through the Bahamian waters. We dared not radio for help, unsure of who to trust. Dawn brought a sliver of relief as we spotted the lights of a distant cruise ship. With cautious hope, we paddled towards salvation, leaving the ominous yacht and its enigmatic crew behind. The cruise ship's crew welcomed us with puzzled expressions, our tale met with skepticism. As we recounted our harrowing experience, doubts lingered in their eyes. Had we escaped a genuine threat or succumbed to paranoia in the moonlit seas? The North Pacific, vast and unforgiving, was the stage for a nightmare I never thought I'd live. We were a ragtag salvage crew, chasing rumors of a sunken ship with untold treasures beneath the cold waves. Little did we know, the ocean held secrets darker than the abyss itself. Our vessel bobbed on the choppy waters, the salty wind biting through our jackets as we zeroed in on the coordinates. The sea, usually indifferent to our pursuits, seemed to murmur warnings that went unnoticed in our excitement. We lowered our rusting submersible, its creaks of protest echoing our own apprehension. As we descended into the murky depths, the ghostly silhouette of the sunken ship materialized. It lay dormant, a relic from the past waiting to divulge its enigmatic cargo. The cargo hold, a rusted maw, yawned open like the mouth of some forgotten leviathan. We maneuvered our robotic arms to pry open one of the crates. The metal groaned in protest, revealing an array of unmarked boxes sealed with a cold finality. Ignoring the chill that slithered down my spine, I ordered the crew to bring one on board. The first crate revealed a cache of old documents, written in languages long forgotten. It hinted at a history veiled in secrecy, entwined with whispers of experiments and maritime experiments gone awry. The crew, usually boisterous, fell into a hushed unease as we sifted through the eerie relics. Night fell, casting an oppressive darkness over the ocean. The ship creaked as if awakening from a slumber, its haunted past pulsating through the metal. I brushed off the uneasy feeling, attributing it to fatigue and the surreal nature of our discovery. The second crate harbored something far more malevolent. As we cracked it open, a putrid odor oozed out, clinging to the air like a curse. Inside, our eyes met rows of decaying corpses, preserved by the cold abyss. Panic rippled through the crew, stifled only by the realization that these were not victims of a modern tragedy, they were relics from a bygone era. The ship groaned louder, a mournful dirge echoing through the ocean's depths. An ominous energy pulsed from the cargo hold, suffocating us with a palpable dread. We sealed the crates, haunted by the realization that meddling with the past had awakened something far beyond our understanding. As the submersible ascended, the ship below seemed to stir with a malevolent force. The cold waters outside our porthole shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and shadows danced in the corners of our vision. Fear gnawed us, a visceral response to an ancient curse. Back on the surface, we secured the crates and set sail for the nearest port. The once excited chatter had dwindled to nervous whispers. Unbeknownst to us, the malevolence we had unearthed clung to our vessel like a vengeful spirit, determined to escape the watery abyss. Nights aboard turned restless. Crew members reported vivid nightmares of drowning in the cold embrace of the North Pacific. I dismissed their fears, attributing them to stress and the haunting memories of our grim discovery. But reality would soon unravel. As the ship cut through the waves, a tempest brewed on the horizon. Thunder rumbled, and the wind howled with an unnatural fury. The crew gathered on the deck, their eyes wide with terror as a colossal wave rose from the depths. The ocean, once our indifferent stage, unleashed a maelstrom of vengeance. The ship bucked and heaved, tossed like a plaything in the grip of an angry deity. A primal fear gripped us, the realization that we had tampered with forces beyond our control. The crates, once silent witnesses to an ancient horror, now thrummed with a spectral energy. The ship, caught in the throes of a supernatural tempest, seemed to respond to the malevolent force we had unwittingly unleashed. Desperation fueled our attempts to jettison the cursed cargo, but the storm raged on, indifferent to our pleas for mercy. In the chaos, crew members were flung overboard, swallowed by the roiling abyss. The ship groaned, battered by unseen hands, as if the ocean itself sought retribution for our intrusion into its haunted depths. As the storm abated, we were left to drift, a battered vessel haunted by the sins of curiosity. The crates, now devoid of their chilling cargo, were cast into the unforgiving sea. The ocean, once a canvas for our exploits, reclaimed its secrets with a cruel vindication. The Arctic Ocean, a vast expanse of icy desolation, held secrets I never imagined. I was a submarine commander, navigating the unforgiving depths in silent pursuit of the unknown. Our mission was routine, or so we believed until the sonar pinged with a cryptic anomaly. We descended into the frigid abyss, the hum of the submarine the only company in the darkness. The sonar revealed an abandoned sub, its hull scarred with marks of violence. My heart quickened as we approached, the chilling reality sinking in. We were not alone in these icy depths. The abandoned sub told a tale of desperation. Bloodstains adorned the cramped corridors, a testament to a struggle that played out in the suffocating confines of the submarine. Abandoning protocol, I ordered the crew to investigate the haunting vessel, hoping to uncover the enigma that lurked beneath the frozen waves. As we navigated the lifeless corridors of the derelict sub, a sense of foreboding gripped us. The walls whispered the echoes of the final moments, the metallic taste of fear lingering in the air. Signs of a chaotic evacuation were everywhere, as if the crew fled in imminent doom. In the captain's quarters, a cryptic message was scrawled on a damp notebook. They came from below. We are not alone. My mind raced with the implications of an unknown adversary lurking in the depths. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, the silence of the Arctic Ocean amplifying the weight of our discovery. Driven by an unsettling compulsion, we continued our descent into the abyss. The sonar now revealed a field of silent sentinels, a submarine graveyard hidden beneath the ice. These sunken vessels, frozen in time, bore witness to a maritime tragedy obscured by the Arctic's icy shroud. The wreckage told a story of relentless pursuit. Submarines, once instruments of power, lay defeated and broken. Scorch marks adorned the twisted metal, evidence of a desperate struggle that unfolded in the inky blackness. It was as if the ocean itself sought to reclaim those who dared to defy its secrets. Amidst the wreckage, a chilling revelation surfaced. The logs from the doomed subs hinted at a pursuit by an unknown adversary, a phantom force that emerged from the depths, leaving destruction in its wake. The entries spoke of sonar anomalies, sightings of shadows beneath the ice, and an inexplicable sense of dread that accompanied them. As we retraced the doomed vessel's final moments, paranoia tightened its grip. Shadows danced on the periphery of our vision, and the once familiar hum of the submarine became an eerie symphony of uncertainty. The line between reality and hallucination blurred in the oppressive silence of the Arctic depths. Suddenly, the sonar emitted a spine-chilling ping, a signature that echoed through my nightmares. A colossal form materialized on the screen, its movements deliberate and predatory. Panic seized the crew as we realized the phantom force that haunted the Arctic was now hunting us. The submarine shuddered as if caught in the grip of a monstrous leviathan. Warning lights flickered, and alarms screamed in protest as we descended further into the abyss. The once impenetrable walls of the submarine now felt like a fragile barrier against the unknown horror that lurked in the frigid darkness. In a desperate bid for survival, We maneuvered through the labyrinth of sunken subs, the colossal entity in relentless pursuit. The Arctic, once a desolate expanse, now echoed with the mechanical groans of our fleeing vessel and the haunting calls of an unseen adversary. As we breached the surface, gasping for the precious air denied to us in the depths, the sonar fell silent. The colossal entity, its presence fading like a phantom in the night, left us with a chilling realization: the Arctic Ocean held secrets that defied human comprehension. Haunted by the memories of that harrowing encounter, I surface from the depths of the Arctic, a reluctant witness to the enigma that lurks beneath the ice. It was a solitary journey, me against the vastness of the Atlantic. The waves seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction, and the only company I had was the creaking of the boat and the rhythmic lull of the ocean. Days melted into nights, and the horizon held an unbroken line between the sea and the sky. As I sailed into the heart of the Atlantic Triangle, a subtle unease settled over me. The compass spun erratically, refusing to settle on a fixed direction. It was as if the laws of navigation had abandoned this desolate stretch of water, leaving me adrift in a sea of uncertainty. The first sign that something was amiss came with the repeating patterns in the waves. It felt like déjà vu, the same sequence of crests and troughs playing out over and over. I checked my navigation instruments, hoping to find an explanation, but they offered no solace. Days blurred together as time lost its grip on reality. The sun rose and set in a perpetual loop, and the calendar on my boat seemed stuck in an unending loop of dates. It was a disorienting experience, the monotony of the sea juxtaposed with the disconcerting repetition of time. One eerie evening, as the sky melted into hues of red and orange, I saw another sail on the horizon. At first, I dismissed it as a mirage born from the solitude of the open sea, but as it drew closer, I saw myself, or, more precisely, another version of me sailing an identical boat. Fear gripped me as our vessels neared, and our eyes locked across the expanse of water. The other me wore the same expression of terror and confusion mirrored on my own face. It was a surreal encounter, a meeting of two selves adrift in this temporal anomaly. Communication between us proved futile. Shouts carried across the waves, but our words dissipated in the wind, leaving only the ghostly echoes of our attempts at connection. As we sailed alongside each other, our boats maintaining a synchronous dance, I glimpsed variations in our appearance and the wear on our vessels, each telling a unique story of survival. The encounters multiplied. Versions of myself, each wearier than the last, appeared on the horizon. Some sailed with a haunted look, while others seemed resigned to the cyclic fate that bound us. It was a procession of pasts and futures converging in the desolation of the Atlantic Triangle. In one iteration, a version of me screamed warnings about the dangers of the triangle, recounting tales of shipwrecks and unexplained disappearances. Another simply stared into the abyss, the vacant gaze of a sailor who had surrendered to the relentless march of time loops. Days turned into weeks, and the encounters became more frequent. It was as if the Atlantic had become a tapestry of alternate realities, each thread woven with the echoes of my own existence. Desperation set in as I grappled with the unsettling notion that this sea held an infinite number of versions of myself, all sailing towards an uncertain destiny. The iterations of myself mirrored the stages of my own descent into madness. I pleaded with them for answers, but their eyes held the same despair that I felt within myself. It was a parade of selves, a reflection of the psychological toll exacted by the ceaseless repetition of time. As the boats sailed in unison, the once identical vessels began to diverge. Some were battered and barely afloat, while others gleamed with the polish of newfound hope. It was a kaleidoscope of possibilities, a mosaic of choices that shaped the course of each journey across this enigmatic stretch of ocean. In a desperate bid for escape, I altered my course, hoping to break free from the gravitational pull of this temporal anomaly. The horizon shifted, and the encounters with alternate selves diminished. A fragile hope kindled within me, But the fear lingered. What if, in altering my path, I had merely embraced a new iteration of despair? Time became a nebulous concept, an abstract notion that eluded my understanding. The sun no longer rose or set. Instead, it hovered in a perpetual limbo, casting an unchanging glow over the relentless sea. The repeating patterns in the waves persisted, a silent testament to the relentless cycle that bound me to this maritime purgatory. As I sailed on, the encounters with alternate selves dwindled. It was as if the Atlantic, having woven its tapestry of reflections, released me from its temporal grip. The sea, once a realm of solitude, now embraced me in its familiar monotony. The fear remained, however, a lingering shadow of the surreal odyssey that unfolded within the heart of the Atlantic Triangle. Eventually, the compass steadied, and the waves returned to their natural rhythm. The boat sailed forward, leaving behind the haunting echoes of time loops and alternate realities. The Atlantic, with its secrets buried beneath its depths, revealed nothing of the enigma that had held me captive. As the coastline emerged on the horizon, I sailed towards the embrace of solid ground, haunted by the specter of the Atlantic Triangle. We were just a bunch of friends looking for adventure, sun, and sea. The Caribbean seemed like the perfect setting for our sailing escapade. Little did we know, our quest for sun-soaked bliss would turn into a nightmare. The boat, rented and seaworthy, was our floating haven. We laughed, basked in the sun, and reveled in the freedom of the open sea. It was an idyllic escape from the pressures of daily life. As the wind filled our sails, we felt invincible, conquering the waves as we sailed toward the unknown. It all changed when we spotted an island off the beaten path. A chance for exploration, we thought. We anchored near its shores, expecting to find nothing more than pristine beaches and perhaps a hidden cove. Instead, we stumbled upon a clandestine operation that would shatter our carefree existence. A narrow path led us inland, curiosity propelling us forward. As we approached, we noticed makeshift structures hidden beneath the dense foliage. The smell of gasoline hung heavy in the air. Then, we saw them, men hardened by a life at sea, unloading bales of illicit cargo from a speedboat. Fear seized us, and we realized the danger we unwittingly stumbled upon. We weren't alone. The smugglers, with their faces obscured by the shadows of makeshift shacks, had spotted us. Panic set in as we scrambled to return to our boat. The pursuit began. Our boat, once a symbol of freedom, now felt like a trap closing in around us. The smugglers, fueled by desperation and the threat of exposure, took to the water in pursuit. The open sea, once our ally, became a treacherous battleground. The boat roared to life as we pushed the throttle to its limit, the engine groaning in protest. The smugglers, armed and relentless, chased us through the labyrinthine channels of the Caribbean. We zigzagged, hoping to lose them in the maze of islands, but they matched our every move. As the pursuit intensified, a sinking realization hit us: we were outmatched. The smugglers, driven by the fear of being caught, closed the gap between us. Shots rang out, the sound echoing over the water. Panic turned to terror as we felt the real, immediate threat of the situation. The boat's engine coughed, a cruel reminder of our vulnerability. We were cornered, our pursuers closing in. With no other option, we steered toward a narrow passage, hoping against hope that we could navigate the perilous waters and escape our relentless pursuers. The smugglers, determined and ruthless, followed us into the treacherous channel. The waves grew tumultuous as the boat rattled under the strain. Rocks jutted from the water like menacing teeth, threatening to tear into our vessel. It was a high-stakes gamble, and the odds were not in our favor. The boat grazed against submerged rocks, sending shudders through its frame. We held our breath, praying that the vessel would endure the punishment. Miraculously, we emerged on the other side. The narrow escape brought a momentary sense of relief, but the danger persisted. The smugglers, now angrier and more desperate, continued the pursuit. It was a relentless chase through the unforgiving waters of the Caribbean. Hours turned into an eternity as we navigated the sea, our pursuers refusing to yield. Exhaustion set in, both mentally and physically. The boat, battered and bruised, strained under the pressure. Each passing moment carried the weight of impending doom. As night fell, the chase persisted. The moonlit waves bore witness to our desperate flight. We could see the lights of the pursuing boat, a menacing glow that refused to fade. The Caribbean, once a paradise, had become a watery battleground where survival hung by the thinnest of threads. Desperation fueled our actions. We changed course unpredictably, hoping to outsmart our relentless pursuers. The boat strained against the abuse, a faithful vessel pushed to its limits. Yet, with every turn, the smugglers adapted, their determination unwavering. It was a game of cat and mouse played out on the vast canvas of the Caribbean. The line between predator and prey blurred as the pursuit reached its climax. Our once carefree sailing adventure had transformed into a fight for survival against an unseen enemy. The smugglers, realizing the futility of the chase, finally relented. Perhaps the risk of exposure outweighed the reward. As their boat faded into the distance, a mixture of relief and disbelief washed over us. We had narrowly escaped the clutches of a criminal enterprise that lurked beneath the surface of paradise. We sailed on, haunted by the shadows of that fateful encounter. The Caribbean, with its azure waters and gentle breezes, now bore the scars of a high-stakes pursuit. Our idyllic adventure had become a tale of survival, a story etched into the memory of a group of friends forever changed by the dangers lurking beneath the surface of paradise. The South China Sea, vast and seemingly endless, held secrets beneath its waves. My mission as a naval officer was to investigate the rampant illegal fishing that threatened marine ecosystems. Little did I know that this seemingly routine assignment would plunge me into a nightmarish conspiracy. The days at sea were routine, patrolling the waters and intercepting illegal fishing vessels. It was during one of these routine checks that I stumbled upon something beyond the scope of my mission. A clandestine network, cloaked in darkness, was orchestrating the illegal activities, profiting from the systematic depletion of marine resources. As I delved deeper into the investigation, the shadows closed in around me. The organization I had uncovered was not one to be trifled with, a faceless entity lurking in the murky waters of corruption. Unbeknownst to me, I had become a threat to their lucrative operation. The signs were subtle at first. Whispers among the crew, furtive glances from fellow officers, a palpable tension that I couldn't quite grasp. I pressed on, determined to expose the truth, oblivious to the danger that loomed like an impending storm. Late one night, as the ship sailed through the dark expanse, I found myself alone on the deck. The moon cast an eerie glow on the water, and the distant hum of the ship's engines echoed in the stillness. It was then that I felt a presence, an unsettling awareness that I was now alone. Footsteps echoed behind me, rhythmic and deliberate. I turned, expecting to find a fellow officer or perhaps the watchman on duty. To my dismay, there was no one in sight. The ship, once teeming with life, felt like a ghostly vessel adrift in the sea. Paranoia took hold as I scanned the deserted deck. The oppressive silence was shattered by the creaking of the ship, an unsettling symphony that seemed to mock my unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were watching, hidden in the shadows cast by the dim ship lights. Days blurred into nights, each watchful gaze and hushed conversation fueling my growing sense of dread. Sleep became elusive as the ship became a labyrinth of corridors echoing with whispered conspiracies. The line between reality and paranoia blurred, and I questioned my own sanity. It was during a routine inspection of the ship's communication room that I stumbled upon evidence of the organization's reach. Coded messages, hidden in plain sight, revealed a web of corruption that extended far beyond the seas I patrolled. The illegal fishing operation was just the tip of the iceberg. Fear gripped me as I realized the magnitude of what I had uncovered. The organization, ruthless and powerful, had infiltrated the very heart of the naval operation. My attempts to report my findings were met with skepticism and veiled threats. It seemed the conspiracy reached high into the echelons of power. One night, as I stood alone on the bridge, contemplating my next move, I felt a cold breeze, a chilling breath of something unseen. The ship's lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. The hum of the engines became a haunting melody, a prelude to the terror that awaited. It was then that the ship's intercom crackled to life, a voice distorted and unrecognizable. A sinister message, laced with menace, warned me to abandon my pursuit or face dire consequences. Panic set in, and the ship, once a bastion of safety, now felt like a trap closing in around me. As I retreated to my quarters, the oppressive atmosphere clung to the air. Every creak of the ship, every sound, became a harbinger of doom. Sleep offered no solace. Dreams were haunted by the specter of a faceless adversary. In the following days, I became a shadow of my former self, haunted by the relentless pursuit of an enemy I couldn't see. The ship's once familiar corridors became a labyrinth of paranoia, every glance and whisper fueling the growing sense of isolation. The breaking point came during a storm that lashed the ship with furious waves. As the tempest raged outside, a more insidious storm brewed within. The ship's lights flickered, plunging the corridors into darkness. Panic set in, and the walls seemed to close in around me. In the pitch-black chaos, I stumbled through the ship, disoriented and vulnerable. The relentless pursuit had become a tangible force, a malevolent presence that sought to engulf me. It was then that I felt a hand, cold and clammy, on my shoulder. A scream caught in my throat as I turned to face the unseen adversary. In the fleeting darkness, I glimpsed a figure, shrouded in shadows. The ship groaned under the onslaught of the storm, but the real threat was the faceless menace that now confronted me. The figure spoke, a voice dripping with malevolence. It was a warning, an ultimatum to abandon my investigation or face the consequences. In that moment, I realized the true extent of the organization's reach. They were everywhere, a pervasive darkness that infiltrated the very fabric of my reality. The storm outside mirrored the tempest within. The ship, battered by the unforgiving sea, became a battleground where I faced an enemy that transcended the physical realm. The Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth, held mysteries untold. As a submersible pilot, I had ventured into the abyss countless times, but one fateful dive would unravel the darkest secret hidden beneath the ocean's depths. The descent into the trench was routine, the submersible creaking under the immense pressure. The only company was the distant hum of machinery and the steady beat of my own heart. The cold, dark expanse stretched before me, an alien world illuminated only by the submersible's dim lights. It was during a routine survey that I stumbled upon an anomaly on the sonar. A structure, unnatural and imposing, loomed in the darkness. Intrigued and fueled by a sense of curiosity, I navigated toward the enigma that defied the abyss's silence. As the submersible's lights revealed the structure, a chill crawled down my spine. An underwater facility, hidden in the deepest reaches of the trench, stood like a ghostly sentinel. The water, normally clear and tranquil, now seemed to ripple with a malevolent energy. I cautiously approached, the submersible's floodlights revealing a metallic entrance, devoid of any marine growth. The hatch, eerily out of place in the natural surroundings, beckoned me like a portal to the unknown. Compelled by a mixture of dread and morbid curiosity, I entered. The air inside was stale, a testament to the facility's isolation from the ocean's currents. The dimly lit corridors stretched before me, lined with metallic walls that seemed to echo with the hushed whispers of a clandestine past. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant hum of machinery. As I explored deeper into the facility, a sense of foreboding settled over me. Rooms filled with scientific equipment hinted at experiments conducted in secrecy. Abandoned laboratories, their equipment eerily untouched by time, held an air of clandestine dread. It was in one such room that I discovered the evidence, files, documents, and recordings detailing human experimentation at the ocean's unforgiving depths. The facility, a covert project hidden from the world, had become a submerged nightmare of ethical transgressions. The recordings revealed the desperate voices of those subjected to the experiments, a chorus of anguish that resonated through the cold, metallic walls. The images captured on film were a grotesque collage of pain and suffering, etched into the very fabric of the facility. As the reality of the situation dawned on me, a deep-seated fear took hold. The facility, seemingly abandoned, bore witness to the unspeakable horrors that had unfolded in the pitch-black isolation of the Mariana Trench. I became a reluctant witness to a clandestine chapter of human cruelty. The submersible's controls felt foreign under my trembling hands as I navigated the labyrinthine corridors, desperate to escape the underwater nightmare. The facility, once a scientific endeavor, now loomed like a mausoleum of the abyss. It was then that I heard them, distant echoes of footsteps, alien in the sunless depths. Panic gripped me as I realized I was now alone. The facility, thought to be devoid of life, now seemed to awaken with an ominous presence that lurked in the shadows. As I made my way back to the submersible, the echoes grew louder. Whispers, indiscernible and ghostly, reverberated through the corridors. Paranoia took hold, and every flicker of movement in the dimly lit passages became a harbinger of impending doom. The submersible, my only lifeline, felt like a distant beacon of hope. As I entered the cramped cockpit and sealed the hatch, a sense of fleeting security washed over me. The rhythmic thud of my heart resonated with the hum of the submersible, an erratic symphony of fear. As I initiated the ascent, a primal instinct urged me to escape the abyss's clutches. The underwater facility, its secrets exposed, seemed to resist my departure. Shadows danced on the hull, and the echoes of footsteps pursued me like vengeful spirits of the deep. The ascent was agonizingly slow, the ocean's pressure releasing its grip on the submersible with reluctant reluctance. The darkness outside the porthole gave way to the faint glow of the surface, a distant promise of freedom from the aquatic nightmare. As the submersible breached the ocean's surface, a surge of relief washed over me. Gasping for air, I emerged from the cramped cockpit, shaken but alive. The underwater facility, now a distant memory, remained hidden beneath the waves, a silent testament to the horrors it concealed. Sailing the Bermuda Triangle is like playing with fire, and I should have known better. Our crew, a ragtag group of sailors seeking adventure, had heard the stories, ships disappearing without a trace, strange occurrences in the mysterious waters. But youthful arrogance often drowns out caution. The day was sweltering, the sea mirroring the cloudless sky. The ship cut through the calm waters, excitement in the air as we approached the infamous region. Laughter echoed as we exchanged tales of what awaited us in the Bermuda Triangle. Then, on the horizon, an eerie sight, a ship, ancient and desolate, bobbing aimlessly like a forgotten relic. Curiosity mingled with trepidation as we decided to investigate. It was as if time itself had abandoned this vessel, leaving it to rot in the heart of the enigmatic triangle. Boarding the abandoned ship, the air hung heavy with a palpable tension. The creaking of wooden boards beneath our feet reverberated through the silent corridors. Our flashlights flickered, struggling against the oppressive darkness that seemed to devour their feeble beams. Each step felt like a descent into the unknown. It didn't take long to realize that this ship was more than just a forsaken hulk. It was a vessel of nightmares. Rusty chains dangled from the ceiling like macabre decorations, and the stench of decay wafted through the stagnant air. As we explored further, a subtle sound reached our ears, whispers, soft and haunting. Yet, no lips moved, and the shadows cast by our flashlights seemed to dance to an invisible rhythm. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, the bravado of earlier replaced by a shared unease. The ship, once silent as the grave, began to come alive. Unearthly groans echoed from the bowels of the vessel, and flickering lights illuminated forgotten corners. Panic rippled through the crew as we realized we were now alone. Unseen eyes watched our every move. It started subtly, whispers growing into disembodied voices that spoke in languages unfamiliar. The air grew thick with a suffocating malevolence, and a sense of dread settled over the ship like a shroud. Sleep became elusive as nightmares plagued our restless nights. Then came the apparitions, ghostly figures that materialized in the dimly lit corridors. Faces contorted in agony, eyes hollow and accusing. They didn't speak, yet their silent screams echoed through the haunted ship, etching terror into our souls. Fear gripped us, a visceral fear that transcended reason. The once joyful camaraderie dissolved into paranoia, suspicion breeding like a virus. Sleep deprived and tormented, the crew turned on each other, blaming the supernatural for our descent into madness. One by one, crew members vanished, disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind only echoes of their anguished cries. The Bermuda Triangle, it seemed, hungered for our souls, and the ghost ship became a vessel of relentless torment. It was then that I saw him, a specter with hollow eyes, hauntingly familiar. It was the image of a crew member who had vanished weeks ago, his voice now part of the cacophony that echoed through the ship. He beckoned me into the abyss, a silent plea for release. Desperation clawed at my sanity as I faced the supernatural entity. In the heart of the Bermuda Triangle, I waged a battle for my very soul. The ship, a purgatory for lost spirits, demanded a toll, and the crew, now reduced to a handful, clung to survival like drowning men grasping at flotsam. As the ship continued to unravel its spectral mysteries, I grappled with the realization that escape was an illusion. The Bermuda Triangle, a realm where the fabric of reality frayed, held us captive in its malevolent embrace. The ghost ship, a conduit between worlds, had become our nightmarish purgatory. Days blurred into nights as the battle between the living and the dead reached a fever pitch. Shadows danced to an unholy rhythm, and whispers became guttural chants that reverberated through the ship's hollow corridors. Madness clung to us like a relentless leviathan, its tentacles tightening with each passing hour. It was then, in the heart of that cursed ship, that I understood. The Bermuda Triangle was no mere stretch of ocean. It was a gateway to the supernatural, a realm where the boundaries between life and death blurred into indistinct shadows. As the remaining crew members dwindled, I faced the inevitable. The ghost ship, a purveyor of suffering, had claimed us all. The Bermuda Triangle, a malevolent force beyond comprehension, had woven our fates into its haunted tapestry. The ship, once an abandoned relic, now sailed eternally through the abyss, a vessel for lost souls ensnared in the Bermuda Triangle's spectral grip.